Hey, welcome in. This is our extended roundtable with our political panel. Today we have Democratic strategist Fred Hicks, Republican strategist Spiro Amburn, and Sarah Callis from GPB. Thank you all so much for being here. During the show, we spoke a lot about 2026, these races that are coming up. It is top of mind for everyone. Former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms announced her gubernatorial run this week. I wanted to talk about that run for a second. Fred, I will direct this to you. How has her past as mayor, as well as her role as not just an advisor to President Biden, but a senior White House advisor to President Biden, how is that going to impact her, and could there be negative consequences?
Yeah, so Mayor Bottoms is a formidable campaigner. I was on the opposite side of her in the 2017 mayoral race, and she's quite adroit when people attack. But that was a candidate, and we didn't have a record at that point in time. And then to your question, I think in the Democratic primary, her record during her 4 years as mayor will be litigated by the other candidates.
Absolutely.
Now, she has some strong things to which she can point, but I think there are things that there's certainly some controversies. I think Spiro alluded to the Rayshard Brooks thing and the public safety matters in 2020. There were some questions around the operations of city government and the efficiencies and no cash bail and things like that. But on the flip side of that, her life post being mayor was one where she was very much attached to the president and holding not one, I think 2 different positions. She was considered, at least rumored to be considered as for an ambassadorship. And that should make her, again, a formidable opponent or a campaigner, because now she'll have access to the most precious item you need in a campaign, which is money.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that particularly in a Democratic primary, when you think about it, I mean, she did win a mayor's race. She had some issues, but a little bit of time has passed now, and timing is everything. I mean, she's got a core group I think she's going to be able to bring to the table. And in a Democratic primary, city of Atlanta, Fulton County, DeKalb, I mean, that's ground zero, right, for Democratic primary voters.
And I do think we're going to continue to see her need to answer the question of why she didn't seek a second term as mayor. I mean, we've already seen people ask her that question, and I think that's going to keep coming up for her.
Right now, the gubernatorial field, in terms of major, pretty well-known candidates on the Republican side, you've got Attorney General Chris Carr. He announced way back in 2024. Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones has not announced a run for governor. He is widely expected to do so in the coming weeks or months. On the Democratic side, of course, we're talking about former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. State Senator Jason Estevez is in this race as well. Do you expect, Sarah, more candidates to jump into this race?
It seems like Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones is sort of the big one a lot of people are expecting. And I mean, he didn't make his announcement to run for lieutenant governor until the end of the summer when he sought that position. And so I think we could see him wait to make that announcement a little bit. But I think there are definitely people who are waiting to see what he does before they make their final call.
And I'm going to go down the line here really quick, because Fred, I know you want to jump in. And Spiro, you made the face that you want to jump in too. But I want to start here, because before we got into this section of our panel, you made a comment. You said you were surprised. You thought it was going to be kind of a gusher of announcements, and it's been more of a trickle. Why is that, and do you think that's going to change?
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that. I really am surprised. If I'm a candidate and I'm wanting to run statewide, I'm surprised that they're not out there, going.
What's
the
strategic thinking on that?
Well, I suppose, everyone was waiting for Governor Kemp. Obviously, he made his decision known. I think, to your point, a lot of people are waiting on Burt Jones, although Steve Gooch went ahead and announced, last week. I think you are starting to
running
see...
for lieutenant governor.
Running for lieutenant governor, which is currently, obviously, Burt Jones is the current lieutenant governor.
And they're in the same party, so you'd imagine.
Yeah. So I think there's some angst that's starting to build. I think people are starting to think, man, I need to be out there campaigning. I needed to be fundraising, and that's true. But the strategy, as it relates to, Lieutenant Governor Jones, and I can't speak for him or that campaign, but there could be, a value or an advantage in waiting and kind of keeping the field, frozen for a little while, and then...
Because keep in mind, I mean, Donald Trump and Governor Brian Kemp just had that meeting. They are going to be talking about who they want to put behind their support behind, and could that potentially come out before?
And the timing may not matter if a candidate gets the president's endorsement, so they may be able to afford to wait if they get that endorsement. So.
That's true.
Right.
Well, so I think there's a couple of big shoes that are still left to fall. I'll go with the second biggest one, and I think that is right now people are expecting former DeKalb CEO Michael Thurmond to make a formal announcement one way or another. He's been, it's anticipated that he will run, but one way or another. And what I've heard of late, and this is actually crosses between Spiro and myself, is that former Republican Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan is thinking about running as a Democrat for governor. And so I think if that happens, that'll be really interesting to see how Republicans respond to that, as well as how Democratic voters respond to someone who was a Republican, but who spoke at last year's Democratic convention on behalf of Vice President Kamala Harris. So I agree with Spiro that it's a little surprising that things haven't happened yet, but to Sarah's point, I think there's some real big fireworks that will happen over the course of this summer, probably after the June 30th disclosure period.
That and Sarah, that's a good kind of technical point to bring you in on, because the end of June is an important moment in the political calendar, right?
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, it's the disclosure period where they're going to have to disclose the money that they were able to fundraise.
And is there a strategic element for campaigns where, if you're thinking about announcing, when you time that announcement is in some ways related to the disclosure, in particular in the thinking that maybe you want to wait until that first disclosure period is over so you have a full period after that to fundraise, or if you get in close to the deadline, conversely, and you think you can raise a bunch of money, you can put a big number up on the scoreboard and kind of frighten some opponents.
And I think that's why Chris Carr announced as early as he did, so he can go ahead and start fundraising. And I would think, this disclosure coming up at the end of June, he's been fundraising for 6 months. Those that are in the General Assembly and the Lieutenant Governor, the session ended first week of April, so you've only had about a month to really fundraise for
because
those races.
Because they can't do that while they're in
Can't
session
do it while
by
you're in
Georgia
session.
law.
That's right.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. I wonder how are other names. I want to bring up Olu Brown, who he is the former pastor of Impact Church in East Point. He has announced that he is running for governor. There's a couple of other people who don't necessarily have statewide recognition, not the most popular people, but they could have hold in their communities and they could draw away votes from a Keisha Lance Bottoms or a Jason Estevez, who's on the news like every other day, especially, and also on the Republican side as well. So how could these, I don't want to call them one-off candidates because like I said, to certain communities, they have huge, huge, huge impacts, but statewide, they might be a little bit smaller. How could they play a role?
I'll take that.
So I think that's a great question. Right now, I don't think on the Democratic side, the field is not set. And so if you're someone like Reverend Brown, if you can find a way to catch lightning in a bottle and get a little attention, then I think you can make a move. We saw it back in 2010 where Nathan Deal, who eventually won, was polling last when he first got into the race. He was a sitting congressman from North Georgia. I think there are a couple of other people, names that are still floating out there. We talked about before, potentially Senator Sonia Halpern from right here in Metro area. And I think there are a couple of other people. Now, the importance of this June 30th deadline is that if people do not post a number that makes other candidates go, wow, then you can expect other people to get into the field.
That's right.
In the case of Chris Carr, the Attorney General, his 2.2 million, which exceeded what most people thought, caught people's attention. And I tell you, I think if he posts, the number I'm looking for is if he posts 5 million in this June 30th disclosure, then that's going to create problems for Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, who can raise a lot of money, but that says that's going to be a tight race. And that means you have to start thinking, at least on the Democratic side, about a runoff. But if you get a third or fourth sort of niche candidate, then that could pull Republicans into a runoff, which would take away time from the general election where we expect it to be very close.
And if we get to July and certainly August and the field still hasn't, there's not somebody in the field that can sort of clear the decks, I think you're going to continue to see other people throw their name in the hat or the rumors fly about people getting in the race.
Sarah, I want to end with you and give you the last word here and kind of give you a little bit of like a civics question, a voter perspective question here. We're talking about primary fields. They could get pretty big in our state. That's the kind of thing that stresses strategists and consultants out a little bit. But from a voter's perspective, is it good for Georgians to have a lot of choices when they go to cast their vote, do you think?
I mean, I think any voter would tell you that they want the candidate that most aligns with their views. And when you have these bigger pools, you have a higher chance of a candidate aligning with your views when you see, sort of a diversity of opinions reflected. So I think for a lot of voters, especially the voters who are willing to do their research on a lot of candidates, that's probably a positive thing for them.
And you know what? They can easily do their research by what? watching the Georgia Vote. Every week, we're here for you.
Yes, we are, right here, as are all of you. We're so grateful for you for being on the panel and making your first journey with us, Sarah Callis with GPB.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you all. That is it for us on 11 Alive Plus. We'll see you next time.